Hello and welcome back to another episode of That's a Bad Miss. And my God, what a week we've had. I know the World Championships is always brilliant, but this has been something else. If you haven't been watching, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing listening to me and not watching the World Championships? Idiots. Anyway, before we get into it, as ever, got to mention reddit.com/r/snooker. The place has been blowing up this last 2 weeks, 700 and something new users, about to hit 11,000 overall users. So if you're looking for somewhere to chat about snooker, head to reddit.com/r/snooker. But you guys already know that if you've listened before. And by the way, more of you listening now than ever before, so thank you very much. The downloads have been going up. The YouTube views have sort of stagnated, but that's podcast for you. If you look at even the biggest podcasts, their YouTube views are pretty bad compared to their downloaded views on either Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. And the best way you can support me is through word of mouth. So if you have a friend who's into snooker, give them a shout, tell them about the podcast, and very much appreciated. So it was ticket day today. The tickets for the 2020 World Championships went on sale. Any of you get any? Because I struggled. I didn't think I got any because I woke up. I'd had a couple of pints last night, so went to relieve myself and got back to the computer, and it was already 2 minutes past 9. So I realised, shit, I've missed my best opportunity already. But somehow, I don't know what happened. I think someone had put the tickets in their basket and then let their basket expire. I managed to get tickets to the second session of the final on Sunday the 3rd of May. So, alright, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And then I've got 2 sessions on the first day, and then the Friday the 1st of May would make that the semi-finals, I believe. I've got a session of the semi-finals, finals, and the first round. I'll be doing a little meet-up for the Reddit guys and for you guys whenever I can in Sheffield, probably at a pub or maybe a snooker club, although I imagine they're probably all packed during the World Championships. So keep an eye out for that over the next coming year. So last week I predicted that Barry Hawkins would be in the final, and I put myself out there and I said, actually I'll tell you what, I'll put a clip right now. Again, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to say Barry Hawkins for the final. He got knocked out that day by Karen Wilson. So, yeah, not my best prediction, I'll be honest, but these things happen. We ended up with a quarterfinal lineup like no one could have predicted, and I'll tell you how I know no one could have predicted it, because we had 147 people predicting the World Championships on Reddit, and no one came even close. We had Dave Gilbert against Karen Wilson, which, I mean, you look at it, and if you're a casual, you think Dave Gilbert hasn't really got a chance. I love this time of year for snooker because you can talk to people at work about the snooker and they know what's going on. No one had heard of Dave Gilbert or Gary Wilson. And yet those two ended up being semi-finalists because Gilbert played absolutely fantastically to beat Karen Wilson and make it through to the semi-finals. Now the big quarterfinal was Higgins versus Robertson. A lot of people almost wrote off Higgins at the beginning of the tournament and assumed Robertson would win. And that's me included. I didn't assume Robertson would win, but I expected it. Especially since he played so well during the first week and during the first session of the quarterfinal. But it didn't all go to plan, as Higgins played fantastically. It was tactical, it was smart snooker match play in order to fend off Robertson and to slow his game down a bit, which is where Robertson sort of struggles when he's knocked off his rhythm. And he was knocked off his rhythm. His shot time was well off his I think it's 19-20 seconds he likes to be around, and it was up towards 23-24. And just a little knock in your rhythm, in the way you play is enough to rock your confidence. And Higgins ended up winning, and Robertson was the tournament favourite at that point. So another shock. Well, not as big a shock as James Cahill, not Gayhill this time. James Cahill beating O'Sullivan, but still still a surprise to many. Another surprise was Gary Wilson comfortably, really, knocking out Ali Carter 13-9. I mean, Wilson was playing fantastically. I've watched every tournament this season, and I haven't seen Wilson play that well before. Absolutely fantastic. Ali Carter wasn't too bad. He played pretty damn well, but wasn't enough. And Gary Wilson 13-9 up. Is Ali Carter one of those players who'll never quite win the world title? I mean, no one's going to be Jimmy White again and make it a 6 world championship finals and not quite win. But Carter's been to 2, knocked out by O'Sullivan twice, which is understandable, really. The quality of snooker O'Sullivan plays when he gets to a final. I believe O'Sullivan's only lost 1 world final that he's made it to. But is Carter the next sort of Jimmy White-esque player who'll never quite make it? I don't know. Well, he's got a few years left in the tank, so we'll wait and see. Now, Judd Trump absolutely walked over Stephen Maguire in the quarterfinals. He won 13-6 in the end, but the quality of play during the first session was enough to have him a 6-0 lead and then a 9-1 lead. I mean, Maguire was on the ropes from the first frame. He just finished his fantastic match against James Cahill, I believe it was the night before or a couple of nights before, and it had taken a lot out of him clearly, and Maguire sort of, by the final session, had just sort of accepted his fate and knew he was going out. So Trump, another easy victory for Trump. After being tested by Tepchai and Nu in the first round, he didn't really have much of a challenge until the final now. And if you've been watching, the final doesn't seem like a huge challenge at the moment. Semi-finals were 2 absolute polar opposites. Trump, again, relatively easily got past Gary Wilson 17-11. It started off quite close, but Trump, over the long form, managed to build up quite a gap until the final score was 17-11. So, again, Trump making it through relatively easily. Now, the other semi-final was anything but easy. I mean, for viewers, for the family of the players, for everybody involved. It was Dave Gilbert versus John Higgins. And I'll be honest, that is the single most emotional I've been watching snooker. Obviously, I was born in 98, so I didn't get to see Alex Higgins lifting the trophy with his daughter. I think that probably would have pipped it to the post if I'd been around to see that. But Dave Gilbert versus John Higgins, that's one of those matches that you'll remember forever. In the semi-final of Dave Gilbert's first time at the Crucible as a seeded player against John Higgins, 4-time world champion, goes to a decider. Dave gets a kick on the I think it was on red as he was trying to roll through for the black. He got a little kick and didn't get great position. Missed the black, let Higgins in, and Higgins looked like he was going to clear up. Didn't quite. Went a bit tactical near the end, and Higgins ended up victorious. And the real emotion started after the match. John Higgins walks into the BBC interview room with Hazel, and I can't remember who else was with her at that point, but walks in and starts crying because this is a man who at the beginning of the season was talking about retiring, thought he was playing terribly, didn't want to practice, hated snooker at that point, was a man clearly struggling with his mental state and well-being, and to win that semi-final he just starts blubbering. And then they cut to the interview with Rob Walker and Dave Gilbert, and Dave Gilbert's clearly just stopped crying and then starts again, and then Rob Walker starts crying. And Rob Walker, I've got to say, that was a great example of sports interviewing. I know Rob Walker gets a bit of jip for being a bit cheesy, for silly walk-ons and stuff like that, but his interview talking about where he was when John last won the World Championship, and his wife, his family, sleeping on people's sofas in order to make a living in snooker, and to say you've made it to the semi-finals and nearly beaten the 4-time world champion, and they both started crying, and my God, that was emotional, wasn't it? Did you watch it? If you didn't watch it, go watch it. It's fantastic, so emotional, and it's one of those ones where you wish you didn't care so much about the sport, because fuck, it was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. That final frame, they kept after every shot, they kept cutting back to Dave Gilbert, and he just looked heartbroken, as you would be. I would be. It's fucking horrible to be that close to the dream of the final of the Crucible, and to watch it slipping away in front of your very eyes. And his press conference afterwards, Dave Gilbert, that was heartbreaking as well. Just saying this might be the best chance I ever get to a world final, and I couldn't take it. But that's what sport's about. As some of you might know, I'm a Yeovil Town football supporter, and we've just been relegated from the Football League entirely. After, 7-8 years ago, we were in the No, it wasn't even that long ago, was it? 5-6 years ago, we were in the Championship. And we've relegated multiple times since then, just survived relegation the last few seasons, and now we're in the National League. And that's sport for you. It comes with a heartbreak, but the joys make it worth it. And this match cemented why I love snooker, and immediately I wanted to go down the snooker club. I wanted to head down. I know I'm crap, but I wanted to get down, I wanted to play, I wanted to improve my game, and it's inspiring. It's definitely the best word. And I hope Dave is incredibly proud of everything he's done, and so is John. And John's fight for the title still isn't over yet. And I've talked about John Higgins before, and I wasn't the biggest fan. But I think that one interview and that one match has swung me. I would like to see him win it again. I'd like to see him turn this around against Judd Trump tonight and win. Yeah, so that was a bit of a rant about that match, but what do you guys think about it? I'd love to hear. Obviously, the subreddit exploded in the discussion thread, but if you leave a comment on this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your audio podcast from, head over to Twitter, and that's a bad one, or reddit.com/r/snooker, and we have a separate thread for this podcast if you want to leave any comments. Yes, so I think in that match, Higgins also proved he's the king of the comebacks. Absolutely fantastic. Was trailing by 4 or 5 frames, and Higgins just sort of grabbed onto Gilbert's coattails, despite playing so terribly in the second session that you thought it was all over. He still hung on. Absolutely fantastic match for the tournament. And unless Higgins can turn this around in the final, it's not going to get beaten. That semi-final was pure drama. Speaking of the final, first day was yesterday. Second session starts, as I'm recording, in an hour and 40 minutes. So I better head down Tesco, get some supplies, and then sit down for a nice long day of snooker, hopefully. Incredible standard of the final yesterday. 7 centuries in the first day. The record is 8 for the whole final. And in 2 sessions they did 7. I think they did 4 in one session. Unbelievable standard. And then Higgins didn't really drop off the standard. It's more like Trump just kept somehow getting better and won 8 frames in a row. Absolutely incredible. I'm not sure that John Higgins can catch him. Although, obviously, you would have said the same thing last year. And Higgins still managed to turn it around and nearly force a decider with Mark Williams. But is 12-5 down overnight too much to ask? We shall see. The interesting thing about this is that we might not need a 4th session, which would be a shame, because those final tickets, as I've just found out, are rather expensive. So, obviously, World Snooker sort out some entertainment, but it would be a bit of a shame if the final session didn't happen. Now, during the World Championships, Barry Hearn held his yearly press conference for an update of what's going to happen over the next year in snooker. No rule changes, no nothing like that, but what we did have was him confirming that Betfred will continue to sponsor the tournament until at least 2021, which I found quite interesting because there's been a lot of sort of controversy about betting sites dominating sports sponsorship. They dominate the Premier League, they dominate all of football, and they clearly dominate snooker, Betfred, ManBetX, all of these companies sponsoring a lot of snooker, but that's sports for you. Gambling is a huge part of it. I partake in it relatively frequently. I haven't done for a while, but Yeah, what do you guys think? Because snooker's obviously a bit behind the times with sponsorships. I believe Shaun Murphy was the last world champion to win under Embassy Tobacco Company, and that was 2005, and not long after the smoking ban was. I can't remember when the smoking ban was. I think it was around that time. Yeah, so not a great record for snooker, and I feel like betting sites might come under a bit more scrutiny in the next few years, so it'll be interesting to see how the sponsorship works out from there. What else he announced was there's going to be 128 players on the tour this year, and they're giving 4 more of those spots to people from the Q School. If you don't know, the Q School is it's where players who aren't on the tour go to compete for a place on the tour. So it's amateur players. It's where James Cahill would have been playing this season, and it's another 4 players from the Q School's upper echelon coming onto the tour, and it gives more of the lower down players a chance to excel, which is absolutely always fine by me. We also had Jimmy White, who dropped off the tour this year, being gifted another tour card due to his, and this is a direct quote, his undisputed services to snooker. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. Jimmy White's done more for the game than almost anyone else in its history, and unluckily didn't take advantage of the 2-year tour card he was given 2 years ago, and dropped off the tour. But he'll be back for the next 2 years at least, and I think Jimmy White will never stop playing until he just drops dead or physically can't play anymore. He clearly loves the sport. He wants one more go at the Crucible, and I would love to see him back there. Both him and Ken making it to the second round of the qualifiers this season. I would love to see Jimmy White back at the Crucible. Ken Doherty, speaking of him, was gifted his 2-year tour card at the same time as Jimmy White 2 years ago, but didn't fall off the tour. He took advantage of it, and he's ranked 58, proving he's still one of the best players in the world. Had a great run, nearly knocked out O'Sullivan in the UK Championships. He's a fantastic player, and I'm glad to see he's still on the tour, regularly competing and playing incredibly great snooker like he always could. Now, this is where the press conference gets very interesting, was the World Championship qualifiers itself are going to be changing next year. So as we have it, every player is randomly drawn and has 3 matches, a best of 19. And there's no benefit to being rank 17, so just outside the seeded players, to being not having a rank, to being an amateur. But they're changing that now. 16 amateurs will be invited by the WPBSA. They will join the players ranked 81 to 128, so the very lowest ranked players who are still professional, and they will play in round 1. The 32 winners of those matches will go on to face the 32 players ranked 49 to 80. Those 32 winners will play those ranked 17 to 48, and all of those winners play each other to decide the 16 qualifiers going through to the Crucible. So the higher ranking you are, the less matches you have to play to get through to the Crucible. You still will at least have to play 2, because if rank 17 wins 2 matches, they're through to the Crucible. But an amateur would have to play 1, 2, 3, 4 matches, which is 1 more than before, which would make it even more difficult for an amateur to make it through. But I think it's only fair that the players who have played all year incredibly well should have some sort of benefit to being in the top echelon of the rankings, instead of just being thrown in with everyone else. What do you guys think about that? I think it's probably a great way of doing it. It will probably change again in a few years' time as they sort of work out the kinks. We'll see. I'm interested to see how it works next year. The total prize money for the Crucible will be increased from 2.2 million to 2.4 million, but the winner's prize money still at £500,000 for next year, which is always good. Shows the players who go out earlier getting a bit of extra cash. Semi-finalists, quarterfinalists probably is where the cash will be injected most. Always nice. And can we just take a minute to say £500,000 to the winner? Holy shit. My God, imagine that. Imagine if it goes to a deciding frame for £500,000. Incredible. I'll never get close to that amount of money in my entire life. So, all good so far on the press conference, and then he came out with this fucking beauty. Oh, it makes me mad. It makes me angry. If you didn't know, there is the current way of rewarding 147s doesn't really work. There's a rolling prize fund, so every ranking event that doesn't have a 147 in it, I believe it's £5,000 is added to the rolling total. Never really gets any higher than 30k or so because there's so many 147s at the moment. So Barry Hearn's decided to change it up. And is he offering, I don't know, £50,000, £100,000 per 147 as, you know, being the best of the best at your sport? No. Of course he hasn't, because he's a skinflint with money. My God, this winds me up. Okay. So he's putting £1 million aside. And you think, blimey, that's, whoa, £1 million quid. Perfect amount of money to put aside for 147s. But there are some requirements. And you have to, over the whole season, so one season, there has to be 20 or more 147s to get any prize money. Any prize money. Other than the high score, the highest break prize money. So you can make 19 147s in a season. All players could make 19 147s in a season. And none of them get any money for them. That's unbelievable. Just to put that in perspective, there have been 12 147s this season, so there'd need to be another 8 another 8 more on top of that next season. The highest there's ever been was 13 in 2016-17, and in 2017-18 there was only 8. There is no way a season is going to have more than 20 147s. This is the same as when Barry Hearn said with the home nations, £1 million if you can win all 4, sorry. But the difference is that the home nation events, they have their own prize money anyway. You can 20 147s in a season, okay, so if they then get to split the £1 million. That's only 50k each after all that. So you can be the top echelon, be the best players of all time. To make 20 147s in a season is incredible. And only get 50k each. Unbelievable. I don't know if this winds anyone else up as much as it does me, because obviously you can say they're sports stars, they're paid enough already. But what if an amateur turns up at the World Championships and makes a 147 and doesn't get paid for it? Unbelievable. They used to give away cars. They used to give away they used to give away thousands and thousands of pounds. There hasn't been a 147 at the Crucible in like 4 years. It's infuriating. Tell me what you think, please. God, I swear this podcast winds me up more than anything. It's only when Barry Hearn gets involved. Barry Hearn, clearly a businessman, and it's so annoying because he's done a lot of good for the sport. He has. You cannot argue that the sport would be in the place it is now if it wasn't for Barry Hearn. Not saying that no one else could have done it. Someone else could have come in. But looking at the state the sport was in before Barry Hearn took over and where it is now, there's no debating. It's in a much better place now. But the little things, it's the little things that wind me up. And I don't know how the players will think about the new 147 rule. I don't think they'll be too happy. Yeah, so I think that's all that we've had in the last couple of weeks. That's 25 minutes gone by already. Blimey, I better get this uploaded before the final starts up again. So when the final does end, do not expect as regular uploads as before. I'll probably pop up every 3 weeks. The plan is to have a guest or two on. If you know of anyone, give them a shout, send them my way. Currently looking at having someone from Ripstone Games on to talk about Snooker 19. So if you have any questions for them, make sure to send them in. Would be very interested to ask them questions. Do not worry about them being under any sort of legal obligation to not answer the questions. Anything you can ask them, I will ask them anything. But if they don't want to answer it, they don't want to answer it. So it's worth asking. Also looking at having a few other snooker related content creators coming on. So if you do know of anyone, send them my way. yeah, so enjoy the rest of the final, everyone. Again, big love to all of you. Viewership numbers up, everything's gone up. Very happy at the moment, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy the rest of the final and have a great summer. I'll be, like I said, I'll be coming up once every 4 weeks, but not as often as I am at the moment, obviously. And I will see you guys soon. But if you're only around for the tournament updates, I will see you at the Riga Masters in July, I believe. Yeah. So enjoy, and I will see you guys later.